Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.
Hello and welcome to Behind the Mirror of Music. My name is Dannii Cohen. This week's guest is Carmen Cusack.
Carmen is known for her incredibly versatile voice. Her stage credits range from Christine Daaé in The Phantom of the Opera to Fantine in Les Miserables, Dot in Sunday in the Park with George, Nellie in South Pacific, Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd, and Elphaba in Wicked. She also created the Tony-nominated role of Alice Murphy in Steve Martin's Bright Star on Broadway, and recently starred in the new Broadway production Flying Over Sunset.
I hope you will enjoy the show.
Hello.
Hello.
There you are.
Hi.
Hi, Dannii. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
How great to have you join the show.
Oh, well, thanks for inviting me.
What are you doing right now?
Right now, I have just come back from New York City, and I'm at home in LA County and enjoying a bit of a rest because I've been working over on a new project for hopefully a Broadway show called Three Summers of Lincoln. And I play Mary Todd Lincoln in that.
Sounds interesting. It's always like a very great project.
Yes, it's scheduled to play at the La Jolla Playhouse in San Diego, and that's where a lot of shows start. They always have like a tryout somewhere else and get more information from the audience and do rewrites, and it's a whole process. But it looks like we're on the season for that in January. Meanwhile, I'm doing another project called Bull Durham, which was a film about baseball, and it's a musical that Ron Shelton wrote along with Susan Warren on the music, and Mark Bruni is directing it, and we'll be doing that another tryout later this year in Durham, North Carolina, of all places. And so we'll see what happens there. And I'm working on my own. I'm working on a second album of my own original material. And other than that, just loving life, enjoying my life.
You have a lot going on.
Fair amount, keeping me busy and healthy. Yeah.
Sounds like great projects, all of them.
Yes, I'm very lucky. Been blessed with some fun opportunities this year.
How did you fall in love with music and theater?
I can't say that I ever fell in love with musical theater. I kind of fell into its lap. I love acting and I love singing, and so the two go together so beautifully at times, not always. I'm a harsh critic of musical theater, but at times they go together beautifully. And when I get sent scripts and music that I believe both are strong in both areas, and the role is really enticing, then I say, yeah, I'll come and play, see what happens. But for the most part, I've been very lucky in that I haven't really pursued or attacked that in a highly ambitious way, musical theater. It's always just kind of landed at the right time and in my lap, and I've been very lucky in that way.
You have an amazing range to your voice, from soprano to great belting sound. When did you realize that you owned such a voice?
Well, when I was young, I would sing at church, and I guess I just realized there that I had something going because I was a very shy kid. But out of a pure incidence of a youth pastor hearing me, sing with everyone else, he asked me one day if I would sing a solo. And so I, tried to just get past all my fears and my shyness. And as soon as I let it rip with my voice and people started reacting to it, I realized that I was being heard and I had something there. And so I just kept singing. I fell in love with singing and realized that somehow or another I was given a natural ability to hold on to notes and to carry them out. And there went training in music, went to school, trained in, was in all the choirs at high school, and then continued to sing in church, and then was connected to a professor of opera at university. And even though I was in high school still, I was getting tutored by this professor. I had to audition for him before he would spend his time with me, and he agreed to start training me. So I started training professionally with an opera when I was about 16, 17.
What was your first professional role on stage?
My first professional role was Christine Daaé in Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, wow, big one immediately.
Actually, I lie. My first professional contract prior to getting a lead role was in Can, in Theater in the Round in Fort Worth, Texas, Casa Manana. That was my very, very first professional gig. And I was just ensemble. I mean, not just ensemble. Ensemble is amazing. I got my foot in the door, and I got to play with, with all these other professionals, and it was a wonderful experience. And I got bit by the bug, and I just kept going. I loved it.
Well, I'm just going to change my light a bit. It's going in my eyes. Yes.
What time is it there? Where are you?
10 o'clock with me.
Oh, okay. Not too late.
No.
And where are you at?
I'm in the Netherlands.
The Netherlands. Oh my goodness. I've been there before. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it was I grew up between the Netherlands and England, with my parents both being from different countries. So that's why I'm have this connection to European and English and American musicals altogether.
Wow, fantastic. Very exotic.
First big roles were Christine in Phantom and Fantine in Les Miserables on the West End. How was your time in the UK working on these shows?
It was amazing. I kind of again fell into a situation where I met someone on a ship, and we started dating, and I went to England. I got married really young, but he was a pianist, and I just thought, well, maybe it'll work out. We can be, we can travel the world and play music together. The marriage didn't last for very long, but we went to the West. He was British, and we lived in Manchester, and that's where I got my first lead professional role in Phantom of the Opera. And the marriage didn't last for very long, but the career just kind of catapulted. And I literally finished my contract with Phantom of the Opera on the tour of Phantom of the Opera. I finished on like the Saturday of that, and was in on rehearsals the following Monday in London as understudy Fantine. They wanted to see me as for Cosette, because Christine and Cosette are similar similar vocal ranges, but I kind of wanted to change the tune. I wanted to kind of move in a different direction. I didn't want to like get boxed into ingenue roles. I wanted to open up that I could sing all these different things. I wasn't just a light soprano. I like to belt and do rough and ready roles. And so I auditioned for Fantine instead. And they were like, well, we don't have a position open for Fantine, but you can go in as understudy if you want. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll take it. And they're like, how? You know, you want to go back as understudy for, I said, yeah, because I want to kind of open up the conversation a bit more as to what kind of performer I am. So I went literally from Christine on at the end of that week to Fantine rehearsals as a Fantine understudy the beginning of the next week. And then they moved me into the role as soon as a lead position became open. And that took me onto the tour, and which I loved. I loved touring. I loved traveling with the show and becoming like, you know, a touring family. Yeah, and got to see all sorts of different places. Yeah, I kind of preferred that. And then I realized, well, maybe I want to do something where I stay put in London, in the West End. And so that's what I ended up doing.
Then you returned to America for Wicked, I think.
That's right. I auditioned for Wicked in London, and they decided, it was a long process. I think it was like 6-month auditioning process. And through that, halfway through that auditioning process, the news was released that they were going to bring Idina Menzel into London to open the show. And so that was like, oh man, okay. Because that could have been a real kind of career changing opportunity. But then they brought Idina over, and then they were only looking for a standby, or like someone that could do 2 shows a week. So that kind of changed my trajectory as far as what I wanted to do. And but I still continued with the audition process to see where it would go. And it was between myself and another girl, and I was doing full-on American version Elphaba, even though it was in London. And she did a British Alpha. She is British. The girl, oh God, I can't think of her name right now. It was a while back. But anyway, they went in her direction, but they said, but you're American. We'd like to take you to America. And I'd been waiting for an opportunity to go back to the States for a while. And so it just kind of, again, lucky me, I was blessed with an opportunity to come back to the States, and I jumped on it. And they took me to Chicago.
How do you feel when you play Elphaba?
Exhausted most of the time. It's a long, hard role. And for someone who trained operatically as a coloratura soprano, I knew that when I belt, you know, I have to be very careful with belting. You always must be very careful with belting. You really need to know your instrument and how to do it correctly. So although I did it correctly, it wasn't something I wanted. My voice didn't want to do that 8 times a week. And I learned soon after I did the first contract, because the first contract, they pulled me in to be standby. So I would do a few shows here and there, and that was easy peasy. But then as soon as an opportunity arose where they were able to fit me into the role full time, I realized that it was a lot to do 8 times a week. I don't think anybody should have to sing that role 8 times a week, unless they have one of those like special voices that is just like they're hitting it in a way that it doesn't affect them so, you know, so much. It doesn't exhaust their voices. But it was a lot for me to have to carry on with that 8 times a week. And so I did, I think it was maybe 1.5 full contracts of that as full time. And then I was like, I'm done. By the end of this contract, I'm see ya. And they understood. But it did bring me to back to the States, which I was really pleased with. And yeah, and then the career just continued to flow after that.
You also do and did a lot of Sondheim work, like Sunday in the Park with George and Sweeney Todd, Mrs. Lovett. How does it?
Go ahead.
How does it feel to perform Sondheim?
I had wanted to perform Sondheim for forever, and that was my first opportunity to actually play a role in a Sondheim show. And when I started to realize, this is a kind of a funny story, because when they were auditioning for Sondheim in London, I couldn't get in. I couldn't get an audition. And I was so mad about it that I didn't go and see the show. I didn't want to know anything about it. I was just so done with the, London, or my agents couldn't get me in. And so I was like, well, fine, whatever. And I think I even gave up the business for a year and just decided to just sing jazz. And I did. I hit all the jazz venues with the jazz band, did the Pizza Express, did all of the Ronnie Scott's. I did all of those venues in 1 year, and then thought, okay, now I want to make money again. Jazz singers, it's a tricky one. So then I decided I want to make money again, but then I want to make it in something that I'm going to really enjoy, and that's going to really challenge me. And then, of course, that was Wicked. Wicked came into focus. And that's when I realized, oh, now here's a part that's challenging. It's got the big, it's got a lot of physical challenges that I want to, see what I can do with. And so then, yeah, that brought me to America. But then coming to the opportunity with the Chicago Shakespeare Theater Company, they said, we would like to see you for this role, for the role of Marie and Dot in Sunday the Park with George. And I said, okay, I'm ready to be seen for that now. I'd gotten over my grudge in London, but I still didn't really know much about the show, but I knew the songs that were involved in it. So I did the audition and I got the job, but I still didn't really know fully what that show was about. And when I started, when I got into the rehearsal process and started learning the role, I found that the director was quite shocked that I didn't know all the lines, because everyone knows that show so well. If you're in this industry, everyone knows that show, but I didn't. And here I was playing the lead role. And I think the director was taken back by that I didn't quite know the show. And as soon as I started understanding the show, I thought, oh my goodness, it is so sophisticated and so within itself, and such a deep story about questioning artistry in a way that I had started to question my artistry already, but didn't even know that I was going into a show that was literally about questioning who you are as an artist. And it just dug so deep. It just grinded me very, very deeply inside, to the point that I just thought, I don't know how to elevate this. This material is so beautiful and so sophisticated. And how do I catapult it? How do I make it to that level that I want it to be at in this role? And I started doubting myself and questioning myself, and then realizing that I just had to embrace it all, because the story that we were telling in the show was absolutely about what I was living, what I was literally going through. And I just needed to embrace it all. And as soon as I did that, as soon as I opened up everything and embraced it, all of a sudden the light bulb came on, and the role just kind of came to me and took over in a weird way.
Seems like such a hard and difficult part to do. I mean, the title song, for example, when you're being painted, I always wonder how people are able to sing that at all, because it's so fast and twisty and everything.
Yes, you're constructed for the most part in the dress, a trickle of sweat, yeah. that first song, and she's just, I had to like literally come, and they made an entire mechanical dress for me. And I had to kind of lift it to get in position, when the lights were dark, and you had to get in position before, at the beginning of the show, I'd have to kind of lift it and scuttle along to my spot. And then the lights would come up, and being able, having to relay my frustrations to the audience, being so constricted, was a challenge. But then you get to, then the dress opens up and you get to just like be crazy. It was, I tell you what, I think and then playing Marie at the end, the 92-year-old. I think that was probably I had the most fun ever of any other part, playing the 92-year-old in the wheelchair. And what was really cool about that story is when I played Elphaba, it came full circle, because when I was playing Elphaba on tour, the actress that played my sister, I would wheel this actress around and she would play my sister. And then several years later, I'm playing Sun in Park with George, and she is again in the show. So I get to play with her again. But then the first day of rehearsal where I play Marie and she's in the wheelchair, this actress is the one wheeling me around in the wheelchair. And I was like, this is crazy. So that was wild. It's a small world.
And later you did Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd.
Yes. That was a scary one, because we got 10 days of rehearsal, and then we had to put it on stage in front of an audience, basically. And the Muni theater is an outdoor theater. It's a massive theater, and it can hold 1,000. Like, I think there was 11,000 people that were in attendance on our opening night. And they had a revolve, and they had 3 tracks that that were really high, that would come in and come out, and they had tracks going in and out, from both sides, from both wings as well, but as well as a revolve stage that the cast only got to use the day before. So if you can imagine how dangerous that felt to everyone, that was a very scary contract. And that's all I'll say about that. I enjoyed playing Lovett, but the effort of being concerned about safety played into that hard for me. And I want to say that I enjoyed that, but there was other issues that kind of got in the way of my enjoying it as much as I wanted to. And that's the Muni Theater in St. Louis.
Yes, I heard a lot that they're giving actors shorter and shorter rehearsal time sometimes, which I really think
unbelievably short rehearsal, especially with all of those moving pieces. I spoke to Equity. There's things that need to be addressed as far as the safety of actors, and I'm championing that at the moment, because some of these theaters are getting more and more complex with the staging, and they're expecting actors to learn everything in 10 days and not have the tools for safety and success. So I'm trying to champion that cause, that actors deserve more respect and deserve to have more safety protection for them with our union.
Absolutely agree with it, because I so often hear about actors being mistreated or getting injured, and then just because there's no safety and there's so little time these days.
And if you break something that can never be fully fixed again, that's no one can, you can't get a new spine. If you fall down a bunch of steps that you never had a chance to really rehearse with enough time, it's really important. And I think that people need to start being aware of that and taking care of their actors, taking care of their performers better.
You made your Broadway debut in Steve Martin's Bright Star. How was that time and experience for you?
Incredible. It was a process. It started 5 years prior. I sent in a tape and just did a couple of the scenes and played my guitar and sang a couple of folk songs and then they asked me to do a reading. So I was sent to Poughkeepsie, New York Stage Film and Stage School in Poughkeepsie, and that was the first time I met Steve Martin and Edie Brickell, and they were lovely from the get-go, very down-to-earth people. Just wanted to make something good, and we started shaky on rocky ground, not personally, but with the material. you know, the material that we started with was certainly not the show that we ended up with on Broadway. But it was a lot of fun to be surrounded by incredibly successful, smart people that were fearless. I mean, Steve Martin would just throw things to the wall and see what stuck. And and that was a lot of fun to experiment with him for 6 years. And we finally got to Broadway, and that was my debut. And it was a perfect show for me to debut Broadway with, because I was, more than any other role, I was so deeply connected to this role just from my own personal growing up experience. And the music was so rooted within me from the, you know, the South of America, you know, where I grew up in Texas and Alabama and the panhandle of Florida. That music was just, I felt like it was part of my roots from the get-go. From day one, I listened to folk music and country. And although I wasn't a fan of country music, it played all the time where I grew up. And then I started to understand, appreciate it later on in life. But I would say this is bluegrass. This was not country music. This is bluegrass folk. And it really hit me in a very special way.
You also won a Tony for the role. Must have been wonderful to immediately on your Broadway debut win a Tony.
Well, I didn't win the Tony. I got nominated. But that was fun. That was great. I was so happy to be a part of that party, that conversation. So beyond surprised and shocked that, you know, no one knew who I was, and all of a sudden I show up and they're like, who the heck is this person? Oh, well, here you go. Here's a Tony nomination. So yes, that was quite a gift.
Besides the roles we mentioned, what is one of your favorites that you've performed?
Oh gosh, besides the ones mentioned, I really enjoyed playing Claire Booth Luce, and that was something that I guess most recently did on Broadway, and that was in a show called Flying Over Sunset, and I got to work with the amazing James Lapine, and I really enjoyed working on that, not just for that role, you know, a historical woman who just kind of pushed the boundaries on so many levels, but to work with James Lapine and to work with that particular cast. It was a very small, almost like an ensemble piece, and to also discuss the topic of LSD. You know, it's now people are discussing it again, and I'm glad to see that you know, it was just it was a very mind-opening, heartfelt connection, especially at a time that hit the world, the pandemic. We were to open our show Flying Over Sunset to our first preview audience the day Broadway closed, and the day the lockdown happened on March 13th. We were supposed to open for our first preview. And that's when everything just went boom, everybody go home. And of course, you know, we put our stuff in our dressing rooms and thought we would be back in a month or two. A year and a half later, we all come back after experiencing what we'd all experienced. The fear of, you know, no one knew what was going to happen to the world. We were all, you know, really scared. And then to come back to these people after going through what we'd all gone through in our own different ways, and to still year and a half later be able to come back and make this show happen. It's hard to describe what that felt like completely. Because here we were talking about connection, you know, human connection in our show. And then to go through what we all went through, it just was on a whole other level of understanding to do that show and to do it with these people. That's one I'll never, ever, ever forget.
I understand, because even now, years later, people are still experiencing effects of it, and theater itself
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was already a disconnect prior because, you know, everyone's like stuck on their phones and stuck on
Yes.
screens. There's already a physical disconnect and social anxiety. We're talking about these words were already in existence, but then you have a pandemic, and you know, for people like me that never really dealt with social anxiety before and never thought I would, um, you know, we all have it to some degree now. It has changed our world for sure. I hope that we can get back to where we were, but you know, everything is for a reason. Just got to embrace it.
So true. Do you have a dream role, something you still want to do?
I get asked that all the time. And I honestly can't say that I do. I'm always just looking for that new thing, that next new, unique, something that's just fearless and out there. I saw a show just this last week on Broadway that blew my mind open and just gave me hope for theater, because so much of, you know, it's such a hard thing to do. It's hard to create something that requires dialogue, and the dialogue is strong enough to then go into song with and to move people, that, you know, and entertain them for 2 solid hours. It's a hard thing to get right, which is why I'm highly critical of musical theater, because it really is hard, and I try to give grace as much as I can, but it's a hard thing to get right. And I saw something this last week that really kind of opened up a whole new realm to me of what theater can be. And you know, because it's expensive. It's very expensive to put a show out there. And and you have to be fearless and brave to do something new. And this was very new and very interesting and just moving and quite special. It's called Illinois, and I suggest if anyone gets a chance to go to Broadway, go and see that one. It's just beautiful. But yeah, I guess the answer to the question is I'm still searching. I'm still, you know, waiting for that. I'm writing my own stuff. I have a team behind me that kind of well, that they want to write a show for theater, and they want we are working towards that. I'm not exactly sure what that will be yet, because again, I am skeptical in ways of how to tell a story in a formulaic way of musical theater. I think there's other cool new ways of doing that, and I think that this thing that I saw last week kind of opens the door in this way that's really exciting to me. So we'll see what happens.
What is your favorite stage memory, or one of your favorite stage memories?
Oh gosh. There was a moment early on when I was on the stage with Jeff Layton, funnily enough. You have interviewed a few of my colleagues from the past, from the old smoke over in London. Jeff Layton, did you interview him at some point?
Yes, it was the most recent one.
Ah, that's cool, because we just had a back and forth the other day. I have not seen him in so long.
It was wonderful to interview.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Playing Fantine. And it's hard to describe, because you have to be so aware of what you're doing on a stage, and yet you have to take yourself deep into a character and deep into a role to tell a story, to make it seem real to an audience under very unreal circumstances. You're on a stage and there's lights and you're in a costume and wig and you're sweating. But I think it was the first time I understood how to let go completely and let what was come through in a way that I felt as if there was a magical moment that I connected with Jean Valjean in a way that seemed more real than ever before. And it's difficult to explain what that was that happened. It just felt like theater magic, live magic happening. And it felt as if I'd left my body and he left his, and we were having this moment. And that's kind of when my head just kind of opened up as to how to do this and how to make it seem as real as possible. And it really is just about letting go of everything else and letting the words and letting the music just fill you and let it fly in a way and not be in control of it. Letting go of the control. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. That you're really in the zone and feel just the character in a way.
Yeah, it's just in this other sphere of it was like an out-of-body experience, and that I wasn't in my body, I was just somewhere here. And I swear I hadn't smoked anything. I wasn't on drugs. It was just a great moment. And that was my first moment of understanding how to let go and how to let a story take over. And that first experience was with Jeff Layton, who you just recently interviewed.
Would you ever go back to the UK for shows or performances?
Absolutely. If something came up that was right, the part was right, and the contract was going to allow me to be there and to enjoy life, and absolutely. I have so many friends and family there that it'd be a perfect opportunity to just spend time again there.
Is there anything you wish to add or include in the interview, or wanted to tell that you've forgotten?
No, I don't think so. Just sending out good vibes to everyone and thanking your fans for being fans of theater. I have been so grateful and continue to be so grateful to do this work. And I know I say that I'm a harsh critic of musical theater, but I also love the craft. I love being able to act and sing and to move people, to transport them somewhere. It's a powerful, powerful tool. And we all, and it's a connective tool. And to do it live with other actors on a stage, and to have an actual audience, and the feeling of being together as one in this place together, not just on your screen looking at something, but there's a magic there that I really hope continues. I hope this way of entertainment and this way of communicating and connecting with humans continues. This art form continues, and I really, really thank everyone that loves theater, and I thank you for championing this art form.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I so agree with you, because you hear people be critical of musicals so much, and I think people are really missing something big in their life when they don't understand Broadway or musical in general.
And at the end of the day, every musical, no matter what it is, it's each to their own. Everyone's going to be moved in different ways by different shows. And, no one should just read one article about what one critic says about something before just not giving it a chance, And I also think that there should be fair ticket charges. I think that everyone should be able to afford to come to see theater.
I think it should also be it should be made more accessible, but perhaps. And I know it's really hard for producers to do this, but some more pro shows so people can see it on TV, so they want to go, because some people don't know what's out there, or just can't go.
I agree. I agree. I hope that conversation is being had now that things are becoming more accessible, and, you know, at least maybe streamlining a trailer of some sort, you know, that can really give people more of an understanding of what's going on, what's going out there. And it is expensive to go to London, and it is expensive to fly to New York and see these shows live. So I understand that there should be some kind of form of that, that should be more accessible. I agree.
I think I once saw an old Tony show awards where Angela Lansbury was talking about how back in the day they made some small pro shots for people who were ill who couldn't go to the theater. And I thought it was such a lovely thing they did back then, and should come back in some way.
Totally agree. Totally agree. There is nothing that can compare to the live experience, but just because of that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be accessible to everyone. I agree.
So I think people had more, artists more had a chance to do things on TV, so more people could be drawn in the past.
Agree.
I think that's really missing these days. Artists need more chances to be able to show their work around the world on TV or online.
I totally agree. There's got to be a way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for doing this. It's wonderful.
You're welcome.
To see you.
It was nice to speak to you too. Have a good night. Thank you, Dannii.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.